Hello everyone and welcome to another jaw-dropping episode of Excel tutorial videos. My name is Alexander Wong and today we'll be going over pivot tables. And let's get to it. So how does a pivot table work? Let's just try it right now. First you go to the Insert tab, press Pivot Table, and select the range of things you want this pivot table to have as its data. So I'm going to select all of these names. And then I usually like to put it in an existing worksheet that enables you to edit it pretty easily and see the data as well. So here we have it, just a normal pivot table. So what I'm going to do is press group name, and automatically it puts group names into values, into this column called values, where it gave us a count of the total number of group names. So let's see what else we can do with this. What if we drag it over here? Then it gives us it gives us all the names put together. And here, then it will give us all of the names put in a column. Right. So if we want the individual, the number of times these names are mentioned individually, what we can do is, first of all, we have these group names in the rows. Then we can move on and put these group names into the values as well. Right? So we have the category we want in the row and then the values. And let's move on to something slightly more complicated. So here we have three different group segments: big, medium, and small, and then we have their revenues and expenses as well. So let's do this one. Might take a little bit better of an understanding of how pivot tables work. So in this case, we want to separate. What are we going to separate? So usually revenue and expenses, these things are values. So when you put things in values, you might as well have put them in columns because they show up as new columns, right? So in this case, I'm going to put group segment into rows like so. So it'll give me 3 rows of the small, medium, and big, and then I put these values, I put revenue and expenses into values, and you can see in the columns, values has popped up. So those two go into the columns and this into the row. Now, if we want to say only show for big and medium, then we can also put the group segment into a filter. So in this case, we'll filter it and say have only big and medium, or only big. That's completely up to you. Another thing that is pretty cool to note is that you can actually switch the order of these columns just by moving this. So if I want expenses here to be before revenue, I'm going to go here and make expenses higher than revenue. There you go. So I moved this upwards and the column shifted as well. Right. So let's go to the next one. Calculated fields. So in this case, in this scenario, we have a whole bunch of data. We have revenue, expenses, and capital. But we want the return on assets, and the way return on assets is calculated is net income divided by capital. Right. So we can either make a column here that is called net income and then just calculate it and add these two together, divide it by the capital. But let's try pivot table, right? So insert pivot table, existing worksheet, and then here we use this range. Okay, right. So what do we need? We need subdivisions. We need group segments. Do we need group segments? Yeah, let's just have it as subdivisions. And then revenue, expenses, capital. Okay? Alright, so in this case, we still need the net we still need the return on assets. So what we're going to do is go here, pivot table analysis, and then press field items and sets, and then go to calculated fields. So we're going to insert a new calculated field, and this calculated field is called return on assets. And with the formula here, what we're going to do is first start a bracket, and then go insert revenue, minus, insert expenses, close brackets, divided by, insert field for capital. Okay. There we go. There we have the return on asset as a percentage, as the decimals, right? So that's how you insert a calculated field. A little caveat here is that when you use the calculated field here for pivot tables, what Excel does is it's going to add up all the revenue minus all the expenses divided by all of the capital. Okay, so yeah, just be a little bit careful about that. Right, so let's move on to another function in pivot tables called group. The group is actually pretty useful, and I'll show you in just a moment. Let's just build up a pivot table. Here it is. And let's have the service month. Yeah, let's have service month. And then have revenue and expenses. Okay. So, what you see here is a nightmare. Look at how long that list is. We don't want that at all. So what we're going to do is press on this button here. We just press on this row, this column here, and then we're going to press group selection, and then press group selection, and then we can have it by month. So let's try that. Okay, it looks a lot better. So now they're grouped by months. But if you look here at the dates, right, this is 2016, this is 2017, 2016, 2017. They do not, Excel does not discriminate between the years here. They just group it only by months. So what I'm going to do is go back there, demand a refund, go to months, and on Mac it's press command. So it's basically select months and years. I think for APC it should be control, and press OK. And there you have it, 2016, 2017. Right, that looks a lot better. But I also don't like this row label here. I'd rather it just be service month or whatever. So I'm going to go here to design, under design, and then under report layout, just select tabular form, and it's going to fix it right up for you. Right, and last but not least, let's do some slicers. Slicers are really cool. And again, let's build up our pivot table before I show you. Existing worksheet. Okay. Right. So here we have quite a lot of stuff, and I'm just going to put these things into the columns first. Right. So a lot of things. Province should probably be the top, and then department and surname. Right. So in Alberta, under copper, we have Gale. In Alberta, under gravel, we have Griffin. Okay, you get the gist of it. So this, let's say your boss wants to see only BC or only copper, or suddenly he wants to check on Griffin, suddenly he wants to check on Manitoba. It can get complicated, right? So what we want to do in this case is insert a slicer. So we want it for, let's say, the surname, the department, and the province. Okay. Now let's move that here. Right, so for example, if suddenly we cared only about BC, there we have it. only BC. There's aluminum, copper, iron, paper, McLaughlin, Evans, Marshall, Morris. And then you can see these things that are kind of, well, the color's diluted, and you can see that these are all they have in this province, right? And those ones come to the top as well, which is pretty cool. And then you can press this button to defilter, and then you can go on to whoever else, Blanchette, who is in New Brunswick, and then titanium and salt this much. Okay, so that's going to be all for pivot tables today. We went over how to use a pivot table, usually what to put in values in rows, and that values are in columns, filtering pivot tables, adding a calculated field, even having a grouping, and adding a slicer to your pivot table. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope I helped.